Mr. Lake, I am baffled by your lawsuit, so I am hoping, sir, that you are going to be able to explain to me why you believe that this young lady should give you $2,500.
As a consumer in a very aggressive area, retail grocery, as a consumer there where...
Why don't you tell me the story, sir?
The story is...
Yes, tell me about the lawsuit.
The lawsuit itself
Put your papers down, put your briefcase down, and just relax and tell me the story.
The story, which I have the physical evidence here, is that as a consumer, on Christmas Eve of last year, I entered with a companion at a certain grocery store in the San Diego County area. With that, and with my companion, we went through the cash-only line. My companion went first. She bought a couple of items. She was waiting right there on Christmas Eve for me to go through. Body language that she was ready to go, keys in her hand, tapping her foot. It was a very rush type of thing. I come in with one item in the cash line. I go ahead and confront the cashier with...
That's this young lady here.
Yes, ma'am. A person now, who I now know the first and last name of. At that time, she was wearing a name tag with just her first name and last initial. At that time, right here on the receipt...
You gave her your item. What did you buy, sir?
I bought one bottle of champagne.
Okay, you bought a bottle of champagne, and you gave her money.
Not only did I give her money, but before I gave her money, I said, I have two $20 bills and a 50.
Well, why would you say
Shut up!
Pardon me.
You gave her two $20 bills and a 50. And how much was the champagne?
You can see the attitude of the store.
Hey, just a second. Mr. Lake, answer my questions,
yes,
please.
ma'am.
How much was the bottle of champagne, sir?
The bottle of champagne with the tax and everything else came out to $4.30. I asked Ms. McConnell, can you break a 50? I told her I have two 20s and a 50. She said yes. I handed her a $50 bill, a quarter, and a nickel, $50.30 for a $4.30 purchase.
So what happened? Come on, speed
What
up the
happened
story.
was, with my companion waiting to go, rushing off for...
I heard the companion. What happened with the money and the champagne? Come on.
The money in the champagne is, I got the champagne, but I didn't get all the money.
Okay, so you say that she shortchanged you in the change, is that right?
She went ahead and counted out $50 in cash as a count back. I grabbed it and the receipt, stuffed it in my pocket, and left. Very soon after, in the same part of town, I had another cash transaction. I got out my cash. The receipt read clearly, cash tended, $40.30.
Okay.
I went back within half an hour of making my purchase. I confronted her and I said, have you taken in any $50 bills recently? And she said, no. This is within minutes after the transaction.
Okay, so what happened? Come on.
What happened was that talking to various store officials, including one Dean Honda, and
you talked to people at the store.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you get your $10 back?
I got the $10 back after a lot of arguing, and I also got the corporate phone up here in LA County.
Mr. Lake, so you went in, you gave her money, you realized sometime later when you were making a purchase that she had given you, according to you, $10 less in change than you should have gotten. So
yes.
far as that, make it fast?
Yes.
You went back to the store. At first, they didn't think that they had made a mistake, but ultimately that evening, they gave you the $10, correct?
After a lot of arguing, yes.
So you had a lot of arguing, whatever. That evening, they gave you back the $10.
That's correct.
So why are we here?
On principle. She still has her job. She has not, to the best of my knowledge, been reprimanded, and the store has tolerated outright theft. This is not my opinion. This is physical evidence. They tolerated outright theft. It's not my fault that she wanted some kind of a Christmas bonus on her own as an individual employee. In an industry that, from the top, constantly cheats consumers through price fixing, that store managers constantly take items off of sale on their computers. We have, in addition to that, employees working on their own, taking money out of my pocket. The principle of the thing is we have theft, we have denial of the theft, and we have zero cooperation from the corporation.
Okay. Now, I have a couple of questions to
Yes,
ask you.
ma'am.
How many lawsuits have you filed with regard to this particular incident?
One.
And this is the only one.
Yes, ma'am.
Never filed any lawsuits against her because she has a counterclaim against you for a variety of things, including abusive process, which is really the basis of your lawsuit, although you don't couch it in that language. She says that you've sued her at various times, and she'll tell me about that. You've also slandered her, which you did right now. You said she was a thief.
And I stand by that.
May cost you money, Mr. Lake. You understand that?
I stand
Because
by
now
it.
I'm going to ask you some questions. Then I'll get to you. Okay, fine. It was Christmas Eve.
Yes, ma'am.
Store was busy,
Relatively so, yes.
and there were a lot of people online waiting, which is why you went to the cash line?
No, it was well staffed. They had a fair amount of employees waiting on people, so it was busy, but it wasn't real crowded, or there was not a long line.
Okay. And
One item in cash.
no, Mr. Lake, you're not following me, sir. If I had a 20 and a 50 and I was buying a $4 item, I might say, can you cash a 50? I have a 50 or a 20. Can you cash a 50? You told me that you said to her, I have two 20s and a 50.
Because I had just pulled it out, and I was looking at it and communicating right off the cuff at that moment.
So what you did, what you're saying to me, Mr. Lake, is, since you must agree with me that that was sort of a silly thing to say, I have two 20s to pay for a $4 item or a 50. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous, right? Mr. Lake, is that kind of ridiculous to say I have two 20s to pay for a $4 item, or I have a $50 bill?
That's the items that I pulled out. That's the cash I had on hand.
Well, who cares what cash you had? What if you had a $1,000 bill? She doesn't care what cash you had on hand. You had a 20 and a 50. You could have paid with either one.
I had a couple
So
of
can you
20s.
say, did you ever say I made a mistake? Did you ever say that in your life?
Often.
Very good. Well, so you made a mistake. You should have said, I just have a 20 and a 50. Can you cash the 50?
Well, if I had more time, if it wasn't a rush situation, maybe I would have.
Now we're getting there, Mr. Lake.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Do I look like I need help?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shannon McConnell, a supermarket cashier, disputes Donald Lake's accusations that he was shortchanged.
So you made a mistake because it was rushed, because you were taking out your money fast, because you had somebody waiting for you, and there were a lot of people behind you waiting to get checked out. So you made a mistake. Why wouldn't you give this young lady, and I haven't heard from her yet, the benefit of the doubt? Why do you ascribe to her malevolence, criminal activity, when it could have been an honest mistake?
That's a very good question.
I'm waiting for your very good answer. Now you're taking time to think about it, Mr. Lake, because you're going to think about a good response to me.
I can tell you right now, two good responses.
Yes.
Response number one, she counted back $50, not 40, in her count back. Number two, a few minutes later, she denies ever having the $50 bill in the first place.
Okay,
And she said right then and there, oh, if she'd apologized, if she would have helped me confer with the manager. I mean, up until I got the money back that night, she was fighting the manager. If she would have admitted her mistake, that would have been fine.
Mr. Lake, you don't think as a consumer you made a mistake by taking the money when she counted out the money and not looking at it? Not saying, I gave her a $50 bill, let me just check my change, instead of taking your change and just putting it in your pocket. Don't you have any responsibility to do that right at that moment?
Whatever responsibility I had with that, I took care of it as soon as possible.
No, you didn't. If you had taken care of it immediately while you were right there, you would have said, look, the bill right there on top, that 50 is mine. Instead, you walk out of the store after she counted out your money. Then you come back a half hour later, after you've made another purchase someplace else, and say, now, Christmas Eve, I want you to remember that I gave you a $50 bill. Hold it. Go.
From the beginning?
Well, if there's anything that he's left out from the beginning, I'd like to hear you.
Okay, when we went to the cash line, it was extremely busy.
How long have you been working at this store?
Since 1985. Not this particular store, for the company since 85. After I checked him out, I went on a 10-minute break. After I came back from the break, I went to another register. So when he approached me, he didn't act asked me in a calm manner. He came up screaming a 20, a 10, and a 5, and a 1, saying that that's a change I gave him. Asked if he'd taken any 50s lately, being that I had just returned from a break, maybe 10, 15 minutes. I was on a new register where his 50 would have been on the old register, so I didn't recognize him from the prior exchange, because they had been so busy. I had hundreds of customers that day. I didn't recognize him, so I thought the only thing that came to mind was maybe he was wanting a nice, clean $50 bill to give as a gift. So I was saying, I don't think so, but I can check. And as I'm saying, I can check to see if there's one in the drawer. That's when he started going as 20, a 10, and a 5, and a 1. And then at that point, the manager came over to see what the commotion was about. The manager did not argue. I did not argue because I didn't know what it was about. The manager took the receipt, said, "You were short of $10. He said yes. He took him over to the courtesy desk. At that time, he just gave him the $10, no questions asked, really. It was a matter of minutes till he got his $10 back. And at that point, Mr. Lake took the $10, waving in the air, screaming, "Don't go through Shannon's line. She has my money. She'll take your money."
Did you do that, sir?
Not all of those things.
Yes, sir.
I did some of them.
Ma'am, this is Jackie here.
Were you there that evening?
Yes, when her and I came back from our breaks, just coincidentally at about the same time, she opened up on the register right next to me, and the way our registers are set up is her customers' backs are to me, and my back is to them. Okay, so I heard a 20, a 10, real loud, and I turned around, stopped checking, turned around, and looked at Shannon, and then he goes up to the service desk with the manager and gets his $10. He has it in his hand, waving it. "She stole my money." I mean, Christmas Eve is the second busiest day of the year. I've been working there for 22 years. I've never seen anything like this before in my life, the whole time. And he was waving the $10, saying she stole it. The customers eventually, he was there for probably 5 to 7 minutes, yelling and carrying on in front of the store. So all of her fellow employees heard every check stand was open. All the customers were, it was very busy. Him saying it wasn't that busy, relatively. Anyway, so the customers finally started saying, "We don't want you here. Go back to where you came from. We like our store. We like Shannon." And he left. That's how it was. I saw the whole thing. I stopped checking to watch it because I've never seen anything like it.
Shannon, how many times have you been to court with regard to this case?
This is my third time.
Tell me about the first 2 times.
The first time I went,
You were served with a summons?
Yes. I went.
What was he suing for that?
The first time was criminal and commercial theft, deceit, and fraud. That was the first one. I went there, and Mr. Lake failed to appear. I thought that was the end of it. I thought maybe he realized that this was a ridiculous case, and that was
Which
it.
court did you go to?
San Diego, Claremont.
Does that sound familiar to you, sir, that you filed a case there?
Yes, it did, and she was not serviced.
Just a second.
There was no service done.
I was there when he served the papers, and you did serve her, and you stood behind her and watched her check for about 10 minutes after you served her. You served her personally.
And
I stood
Just
there
a second.
watched you because
Just a
I knew
second.
you were.
Anne, did you serve her?
No, I cannot serve. Service
Exactly.
must be done.
Hey, just listen to me. Just a second. You served her. You gave her the papers.
Yes, I did, and that is not service. Service must be a third party.
So why did you
Just
serve me?
hey. Do I look like I need help? Do I look like I need help?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're really ticking me off, sir. You're really ticking me off, sir.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Donald Lake, the former educator, wants supermarket checker Shannon McConnell to pay for his trouble when he claims he was shortchanged at her supermarket.
Mr. Lake, so let me understand this, sir. You did, in fact, give her papers with regard to this first suit that she's talking about, but...
Yes, I did.
And what you're saying is that it's a question of semantics, because since you, as a party, cannot serve her, a third party must serve her. It was invalid service, and therefore she was not served.
Also, ma'am...
Am I right?
That's correct.
Good. Now,
And-
say nothing. You're really ticking me off, sir. You're really ticking me off, sir. So you didn't appear in that action because you say she wasn't served. Is that correct?
That's partially correct.
Did you appear in that action?
No, I did not.
Then I'm correct.
You're partially correct.
I'm always correct, sir. The question is, she went to court because she was given papers. She's not a lawyer. She doesn't know that if a third person doesn't serve, it's not considered good service. So she didn't want to be in default. She went to court, and you didn't.
Also, the paperwork was given to Shannon M. I was trying to find out her last name so that she could be serviced correctly.
All right, so now we have one lawsuit that you filed that you didn't follow through with, and she went. When was the next lawsuit?
The next one was 2 months later. We went again, and at that point, we found out that not only did he have my court case, he had 2 other cases in the courtroom next door. Obviously can't be in 2 courtrooms at one time, so he denied having the pro tem hear our case. So perhaps you could go to the other cases. So
Let me understand this so that I make it simple. When you showed up in court on the next court date after you were properly served, I
Yes.
assume, Mr. Lake, you had 3 actions pending on the same day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you had to choose which case you would hear that day because you couldn't be in 2 courtrooms at the same time. So you said, I don't want a lay judge to hear my case. In her case, adjourn it to another day. Is that what happened?
No, ma'am.
Then let me hear.
I said I don't want a lay judge, a person who is not culpable to the Performance Review Board on any of my cases. That is a constitutional right.
And this is the 3rd case. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct? Are you ready?
I think so.
Are you ready?
Judge Judy is ready to rule. Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
Mr. Lake, in the year and a half that I've been handling cases in this court, I have never imposed the judicial sanction of fines for abusive process, fines that are be paid to the court for wasting court time. Now, I am dismissing your lawsuit because your lawsuit is frivolous. And not only is it frivolous, but this is the 3rd time that you have abused the people of this state by taking up judicial time and manpower in filing it. There is no question that there was, based upon what I've heard, an honest mistake. You, sir, are a suer, which means you like to sue people. And maybe you get off on that, but I'm telling you right now that the judicial system in this country will not tolerate those people who abuse it, because if you abuse it, people who have a real case can't get court time because the courts are clogged with this kind of frivolous nonsense. Now, say nothing, Mr. Lake. You already said too much. Now, with regard to this lawsuit, her counterclaim, I'm awarding you. You are asking for $1,400. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And I'm also going to exercise my discretion and award you $2,500.
Wow.
All right? And I am imposing sanctions, Mr. Lake, costs upon you that are to be paid to the court in the amount of $500 because you have abused me, and I resent it. Not only have you abused her, but I resent the fact that you have abused the court system. That's all.
Step out. Now, this is case number 60 on the calendar in the matter of Peters versus Peters. Judge, the parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Thank you. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, you've been married for 6 years and you're in the process of divorcing. According to your papers, I think that you've both agreed that your marriage is going to be over, despite the fact that I get some sense in these papers that you still care about each other, that your lives are going in different directions. And you come before me today because there is certain property that you have agreed to permit me to resolve with regard to the issue of ownership. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And once those issues of property are resolved, then the divorce process will be a relatively easy one.
Yes.
Yes,
Take a deep breath. Are you nervous?
a little.
Okay. Mrs. Peters, according to your complaint, there are 3 items at issue.
Right,
There is a car.
right, the car.
What kind of car is it?
It's a 1993 Geostorm GSI. And then the issue of my cat and my dog, he gave my cat away. And we had decided that I would,
So there's a dog,
yes,
because the cat's gone.
yes. And
So-
then also we have some videos that we,
Some personal videos. that he has that you would like back?
Well, I
Or
would
like
like
it
to-
destroyed?
Yes.
Let's start with the car, because my sense is that the car is, in the area of emotions, the easiest thing to resolve.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, the car is in your name,
Yes, ma'am.
but she pays for it.
That is correct.
How did that come about?
Because when Chris and I had moved to California together, for a while he wasn't working, and I had paid some of his car payments, just 2 of them, so that I was afraid he was going to leave me if he couldn't pay his bills and I go back to Colorado, and I didn't want him to go back, so I paid that. And then I got sick afterwards, and I got really behind on my bills, so my car got repossessed, so I ended up filing for bankruptcy.
I don't believe
And-
you paid my car payments.
Yes, I did. I did
Well,
twice.
it's really not particularly relevant, because what we're here for is for resolution, not to revisit bad moments.
So anyway,
Does that
that's
sound
why.
right to you?
Yes.
So you had bad credit,
Yes.
but you needed a car,
Yes, Your Honor.
and you helped her.
Yes, ma'am. I told her, I says, now if I sign for this car, you have to promise me that you're going to make your payments on time and you're not going to make this a liability to me.
So you said, I'll sign for it, but promise that you'll make the
Make your
payments
payments.
faithfully and on time.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You don't mind if I help you out a little bit?
No, not a
Because I
bit.
got other cases to do today.
Thank you.
Okay. How much more time has to go on this car loan?
About a year and a half.
And how long was the car loan? 5 years?
Yes.
And you would agree, Mr. Peters, that she has made, even though some of the payments were late, she's made all the payments.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So there really isn't much of an issue about that. When you separated, you took the car.
Yes.
So
Well,
the issue-
the issue is the collection agents keep coming to me wanting those payments because they're always late.
They are not, I'm sorry. Sorry, Your Honor, but they're not always late.
Well, I got just this notice right here that she's behind 2 payments.
I'm not behind 2
Let
payments.
me ask you this question, Mr. Peters. How would you like to resolve this fairly with regard to the car? Let me see what your suggestion is.
Well, I would like to be able to sign it over in her name, but that's impossible because they won't do it because of her credit. So I think that she should at least reimburse me maybe half of what the car is worth, and that way,
How's that going to help you?
well, my car is about ready to go.
How do you think it would be reasonable to resolve this issue? Because what you're really asking is you're asking him to sign the title of the car over to you, and yet he has the liability.
Yes, ma'am.
I've made all the payments up to now. I'm not going to stop making the payments.
Well, I know that because you're driving the car. But if you do stop making the payments, that means they're going to come after him or repossess the car.
I would never stop making the payments. I've already paid over $12,000 on that car, Your Honor. I'm not going to stop making the payments. Plus, I paid his car insurance until this year so that he could have car insurance because he didn't want to have
That's
car
not true.
insurance.
You left me with $1,500 worth of bills, and
Chris, that is so not true.
and
Just a
I paid
second.
the last 2 months of your insurance.
Okay. How much is this car worth now, approximately?
$7,000.
Is that about right?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have the last statement that you received on the car?
I just have one of the bill that's owed right here.
Can I see it, please? Well, it says this payment, you are delinquent by 1 month.
Actually, that will be true on the 26th. But I'm going to make the payment before the 26th.
Okay. Give me a minute. You still owe a lot of money on this car.
About $6,200, I believe.
She's probably paid about $2,000 in overcharges by now. 'Cause
No, I have not, Chris.
Well, she's paid for a long time. I mean, you have had the car for, if she's had the car for 4 years, if she's had the car for 4 years.
But every time she's late a payment, Your
I
Honor,
am
they-
not every time
they-
late a payment,
Shh,
Chris.
don't fight with each other. You don't have
Sorry.
to fight with each other anymore. You're getting a divorce. The fighting is over.
Later on Judge Judy.
Have you ever shown this video to anyone?
No, ma'am.
And you want it destroyed?
Yes, I do.
You want to keep it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
And-
sick.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 34-year-old Chris Peters is divorcing his wife Kelly because she won't give up her exotic dancing career. They have asked Judge Judy to arbitrate their dispute over their pets, their car, and their intimate home video.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
I am going to suggest to you that for the purposes of liability and everything else, that you sign this car over to her so that the car is in her name. You, of course, always have the recourse of suing her in a small claims arena. You don't have to go through lawyers or anything else. You know she doesn't have money now.
Yes, ma'am.
My alternatives are to force her to sell the car, satisfy your loan, and then she'd have $800 left. Because if the car is worth $7,000 and there's $6,200 left to pay on the loan, that would put her in a position of not being able to be employed, really, because she wouldn't have a way of getting back and forth to work. I assume you drive to work.
Yes, I do.
Now, you've been married for 6 years. Are you employed on a regular basis?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
You have a weekly paycheck?
The small one.
Okay. You are not, I assume, Ms. Peters, in your divorce action seeking support from him. Is that correct?
Of course not.
Because you're working. So I want you to look at the long-term picture, Mr. Peters. This car is your insurance. Your insurance that when this whole divorce action is finalized, your wife is not going to ask for support from you because she's not working because she didn't have a car to get to work. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what it really means is for the next year while this car loan is being paid off, you'll have to sweat it a little bit to make sure, you know, that she's going to make the car payments. You also can feel confident that after all the money she's paid for the car, it is unlikely that she's going to allow the car to be repossessed. I'm telling you right now, if you don't make your payments, the first thing they do is come and get the car. So, Mr. Peters, you're going to sign the car over to her. That way, when your divorce is over, everything's going to be finished. Is that a good idea?
That's fine, Your Honor.
All right, good. So, that was the unemotional part of this dispute. Now, let's get to the dog. The dog's name is Breezy.
Yes.
Breezy is, according to your papers, a boxer.
Yep.
Is that a
Yes.
picture of Breezy?
No, this is a picture of my cat that he gave away without my permission.
Okay.
We'll get to the cat.
Yes,
Okay.
we will.
That's a picture of Breezy.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, according to your papers, Miss Peters, you had a cat and a dog.
Yes.
You had Mac, the cat,
Yes.
Breezy, the dog.
Right.
And why don't you tell me about the arrangement with the cat and the dog when you separated in November?
Okay. We had agreed that I would take the cat, Mac, and I would let him keep Breezy, even though I didn't really want to let him keep Breezy because she's my dog too, and I love her, and I'm the one that took care of her, paid for her food most of the time, took her to the vet, all that stuff.
You agreed that you would keep the cat and he would keep the dog.
Right, and because I can't have the cat where I'm living right now, he had promised that he would keep Mackie for me until I could get my own place. And I thought that instead of taking Mac at the time and having him stay at a friend's house or having my sister keep him, it would be less traumatic for Mac if he stayed in his own house with his own yard until I could come get him. And he looked me in the eye and promised me that he would take good care of Mac.
The same way she looked me in the eye and
Promised.
promised me she'd make all her payments on time.
Oh,
Mr.
God.
Peters,
I did promise and looked her in the eyes about the cat, and then I'd keep it for her. But sometimes when you get...
so what happened with the cat?
The cat kept urinating all over the house and on my clothes and
Chris.
stuff, and I finally...
Coming up on Judge Judy.
It was totally done just for the two of us. I've never made that kind of video with anyone ever before. And I just did it for him.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mr. and Mrs. Christopher Peters are in the middle of a divorce, but they have come before Judge Judy to settle custody of their pets, a car, and a personal home video.
Why didn't you call your wife and say, listen, I'm giving away the cat. You want the cat, come and get it.
Because I knew that the cat needed a home, a good home, and Kelly wasn't prepared. She just left the cat. If she was so concerned about Breezy and the cat, then she should have done something before she left.
Okay.
She shouldn't have
Mr.
just left
Peters.
it up to me.
Mr. Peters, you didn't answer my question.
Why didn't I
Why
call
didn't
Kelly?
you, at that moment,
'Cause I was
pick up
pissed
the...
off?
Right. That's honest. There you go. Okay.
And
That's
I was
honest.
using, and I was thinking, I was thinking that, you know, it was her fault and stuff. And I was sorry. After I gave the cat away, I tried to get the cat back because I realized how much it really meant to Kelly, you know. But at the time of the anger of the moment,
Okay.
I hated the cat.
That's,
so.
just a second. That's honest, Mr. Peters. Shh. Shh. That's honest.
Okay.
Well, so now, Mrs. Peters, your husband acknowledges that he got rid of the cat because the cat was soiling all over the house.
But, Your Honor, it's because he didn't clean out his box.
Whatever. For whatever reason. He didn't like the cat. Maybe he looked at the cat as an extension of you. Is that a possibility?
Maybe.
He acknowledges that he was wrong. That's a step. That's not a reason for me to say that you're entitled to the dog.
And I'm sorry I gave away the cat.
Good. Did you hear that?
Yes.
I am sorry.
Because, you know, it's like he did some... The dog has been with him. The dog has always been with him for the last 9 months. The dog has been with him, living in a place where the dog is accustomed to living. There's a certain routine. So if I were to say, well, you gave away the cat, now I'm going to give her the dog, who I'm really punishing is this dog who had very... You know, dog didn't have anything to do with getting rid of the cat. So that wouldn't be fair, would it? Mrs.
Well,
Peters, would
the
that
dog
be
lives-
fair to the dog?
No, probably
Right.
not.
You're right. It would not be fair to the dog. It's like saying if you have a child and there's a divorce, and if one parent acted badly about something, you punish that parent by saying, well, I'm going to limit your visitation with the child. Because that's punishing the child. It's not only punishing the party, but it's punishing the child for something that the child had no control over. This dog is used to living in a particular place. How old is the dog?
3 years.
So for 3 years, lived in the same place, same home, it's got a yard, whatever. Does it?
Yeah. It's got
Got a
big
yard. Has a routine.
She's real happy too, Your Honor.
And there's really no reason for me to uproot the dog because he made a mistake.
Well,
Yes, I did.
He made a mistake. He apologized for it. It was not the right thing to do. So the dog stays with him.
Chris, thank you, Your Honor.
Now, the last thing that we're going to address is this video. Ms. Peters, it's your position that this was a rather intimate video that you and your husband took as husband and wife for fun, for whatever. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you want it destroyed.
Yes, I do.
Your position is you want to keep it.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Well, I have a couple of questions to ask you, sir.
Okay.
Have you ever shown this video to anyone?
No, ma'am, I would never show it to anyone else.
Okay, so you want to keep this for yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
And-
sick. Very sick.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It's not as nasty or whatever that you want to think. I mean,
Your
it
Honor,
was
it's very
too-
graphic.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kelly Peters, an exotic dancer, and her husband Chris Peters are divorcing. Judge Judy is deciding what happens to their intimate home video.
There is no reason that I can think of for divorced people to keep pictures, videos, photos of each other that the other party might find embarrassing.
Well, there's nothing embarrassing about it. It was just, you know, I mean, it's like, I love Callie. I'm always going to love her. And it's just, I mean, it's not as nasty or whatever that you want to think. I mean,
Your
it was
Honor, it's very
too...
graphic.
Just a second. I don't want to hear about it. I thought I was being very...
Sorry.
I thought I was being very circumspect about it. I said that there was an intimate thing done with...
I have
between
many
us.
other videos of her, too. I mean, that's not in the same category,
This
but...
is what she wants. This is the one that offends you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bell, I'm going to say this to you one more time, sir, and listen to me very carefully. When you divorce, if you're lucky, you're left with certain pleasant memories that you try not to forget. You know, you had good times with your wife. It just so happens that in your case, after 6 years, your lives have taken a different path. She doesn't want to have to worry about these photographs, these videos, falling into anybody else's hands. God forbid you're out in a car and your car is in a wreck and you are there comatose, and your mother goes through your things, and she says, I wonder if these are pictures of Chris when he was out skiing, and your mother plays this video. Do you understand what I'm saying, sir? You know, it's one of the reasons why people are always supposed to wear clean underwear all the time and keep their houses neat. You never can tell what's going to happen. There are all kinds of situations that I can conceive of where even if you don't intend something to happen, this can fall into the wrong hands. Someone can burglarize your house. That's a possibility. Isn't that a possibility?
I don't think they'd find the tape.
They're certainly not going to find it, sir, because there isn't going to be a tape.
So there's nothing I can say because
there is absolutely nothing, sir, that you can say to me that would satisfy me that there is any logical, rational basis for you maintaining anything that might prove embarrassing to her. And if she had something that might prove embarrassing to you, I can guarantee you, sir, it would be in my possession if it was the subject of this litigation, and it would be destroyed.
Do you?
No, of course I don't.
Good. Officer Byrd, you and I are going to take care of this video in the back. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, listen to me. It's resolved. This is going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed within the next 5 minutes. Officer Byrd and I are going to have fun. We're going to create a little bonfire in my chambers. Now, then you don't have to worry about it anymore, Mrs. Peters. So let us see how we resolve this case. The Geo
Yes, ma'am.
is going to be registered in your name. The dog, Breezy, sir, is yours.
Thank you.
The video is mine. This case is over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please. Your Honor, number 34 on the calendar in the matter of Saunders versus Thompson. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
I gather from these papers you two were engaged, going together for about 10 years. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, Mr. Saunders, according to your complaint, you went away for about 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a euphemism for jail?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you incarcerated for? Because that becomes important.
Aggravated battery.
On whom? Not on her.
No, ma'am.
Was there a weapon involved?
No, ma'am.
And during the time that you were going to be away, you left the defendant your car,
Yes, ma'am.
a gun,
Yes, ma'am.
and access to your money.
Yes, ma'am.
Where was the money?
Originally, before I left, I resigned from my job. The money was somewhat about $20,000 in a K plan. And
A retirement plan?
Yes, ma'am. She had the power of attorney so that she could handle the work, get the money, and handle it.
Okay. So then you come out of jail and you sue her. Not together anymore.
Yes, something like that.
Well, then let me hear the story, sir.
I came out and to retrieve, before getting out, I realized that we were no longer going to be together. I just wanted to come out and receive my property, get rid of the gun, sell it, get my Jeep, get insurance policy that she had of mine, power of attorney back, and go on with my life. Subsequently, I tried to talk with her and get her to give me these things back so that I could go on with my life. She, in turn, gave me problems. They went on for months and months. I couldn't get any of this stuff back.
Do you have your Jeep?
I eventually did get it, yeah. Now, the Jeep I got immediately, but a couple of weeks down the line, I realized that it had some problems in it. A leaning wheel. She had told me before I got out that the windshield was cracked again for the third time, you know, and I was missing a lock, computer lock that goes to a burglar alarm. That's, you know.
All right, let me get to this gun, because I think that's going to be the easiest thing to take care of. What happened to his gun?
I had been carrying the gun in the vehicle.
Why?
At the suggestion of Mr. Saunders, because I did travel every weekend back and forth a considerable distance. There was one occasion where...
Travel where?
To Illinois.
For what?
To visit him.
Okay.
There was an occasion where I had a blowout with the tire. Somebody approached the vehicle. while I was waiting for the repair service, and at that time he suggested I should keep the gun in the car for emergency situations like that.
Is that true?
No, that's not true at all. Ma'am, I've been with Kim for 10 years, a decade before I went away. Kim has never touched a gun. She was scared of them. If I had one in the wrong spot in her way, she would come get me to move
Somebody
it.
approached the
I know
vehicle
that she's,
while I was waiting for the repair service, and at that time he suggested I should keep the
Ms.
gun in the
Thompson?
car for emergency situations like that.
Is that true? What
No, that's
happened
not
to
true
the
at all.
gun? We're going to start
ma'am,
over again.
I've
I
been
was going
with
to go
Kim
visit
for
Mr.
10 years,
Saunders
a decade
for
before I went away.
family
Kim
event.
has
I
never
knew that the
touched a
vehicle
gun.
would be searched,
She was scared
so I'd
of them.
taken the
If
gun
I
out
had
of the
one
car
in the
and
wrong
left it
spot
in
in
the
her
home
way,
of
she would come get
my
me to
third
move
Somebody
it.
approached the
I know
vehicle,
that she's
while I was waiting for the repair service, and at that time he suggested I should keep the
Ms.
gun in the
Thompson?
car for emergency
So-
situations like that.
Is that true? What
No, that's
happened
not
to
true
the
at all.
gun? We're going to start over
Ma'am,
again.
I've been
given
with
to go
Kim
visit
for
Mr.
10
Saunders
years, a
away
decade
for
before I went
a
away.
family
Kim
event in a certain drawer in the house.
Why didn't you leave the gun in your house?
Because when I was on my way to visit him, I was at Mr. Hoag's house at the time, and I remembered, that gun is out there, I need to get it out. So I just came from the Jeep, put it in the house, and I informed him I'm going to leave this here while I go visit.
So on your way to visit him, you stopped at his house.
Right.
Had you told him you had a new relationship?
Yes.
Is that right?
Somewhat. I found out on getting out of jail, I found out when I got into my Jeep and opened up the glove compartment and hotel receipts fell out. That's how I found out.
Step up here, sir. Because I want to deal with the gun first. What happened? Your name?
My name's Gerald Hoag.
Mr. Hoag, what happened to his gun?
There was a disturbance at my house.
What kind of disturbance?
There was a fight between some friends. The police came. They asked were any weapons in the home. I told them yes. They seized the weapons. When I talked to Mr. Sanders about his gun, I told him where his gun was. I told him what he needed to do to get it back.
So the gun was really seized because of a problem that existed in your house with the
Exactly.
police.
Yes.
And your gun is, you have the license and registration for your gun?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You know that you can go to the police station and get your gun back if you can
Yes,
prove it's
ma'am.
yours.
But I was told so many lies. Originally, she told me that she had the gun.
Well, she already told me one lie, but now we got to the root of it.
Yes, ma'am. But recently, I just found out that, and stop dealing with them. I figured I would take it to the court and let the court sort it out.
Mr. Saunders, when the police have confiscated property, and you can identify that property and satisfy them that the property is yours, and I assume your registration for that gun says what kind of a gun it is. What kind of gun is it?
It's a Taurus 9mm.
You don't need that gun for any particular reason, sir.
No,
do you?
ma'am. I don't need the gun, and as a convicted felon, I'm not allowed to have a gun. So therefore, they will not give it back to me.
Ah.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes.
May I say something, please?
Yes.
I did call the police to try to get the gun back. I informed them that I had power of attorney from Mr. I did have power of attorney plus the receipts for the gun. They told me that since I was not the registered owner, that I could not get the gun. I would have to go to court in order to do so. I had contacted them $58 to get the gun. I did not feel that $58 to get the gun. I did not feel that I should put out additional monies when Mr. Saunders still owes me money.
The reason his gun is at the police station, his property, whether it be a gun, whether it be a hat, whether it be a collection of baseball cards, is because of you.
Right.
So he has to be compensated for that. That's his property. He can't get it out because there's an impediment to it. But the reason that the gun is there is because of you. So you can become the registered owner of the gun for the limited purposes of selling it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She told me already 3 lies today, and we've only been together for 15 minutes. That's why.
Real cases. Lawrence Saunders wants compensation from his ex-girlfriend, Kim Thompson, because her new boyfriend smashed his Jeep and lost his handgun.
What other monies do you say she owes you?
$2,600 for a wheel on my Jeep. $900.
Just a minute, $2,600 for the wheel. Why?
Well, when the car was returned to me, and it was in her, I figured she owed me for it because who knows who she let drive it.
Well, Mr. Saunders,
Yes, ma'am.
when you lend somebody a car or turn a car over to them for an extended period of time, that car may be used, driven by her, driven by someone else, and you take certain risks. You're not going to get the car back in exactly the same situation as when you went in 2 years ago. You're a different person, I assume, than you were 2 years ago when you went to jail, right?
Very much so.
Very much so.
Yes, ma'am.
So's your car.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But also, that wheel was leaning so bad that it's unsafe. I do not assume to get my property back in an unsafe condition. Also, ma'am, I'm not upset with anything that happens to my stuff in her possession. But when she lends it out to third parties, that's what I have a problem with. And third parties also who aren't honest.
Well, your arrangement with her was car payments while you were away, and she would have access to the car.
She agreed to pay for the payments. I also, with the money that I had that she was in possession of, said to her, pay for it out of my money.
Did you use his money to pay for the car?
No, ma'am.
That's untrue, ma'am. I have paper right here stating that she did.
I may have made 3 car payments with his money.
Well, why don't you... I just asked you a question. You said...
I'm talking about over the 2-year period. I used my money to pay for that vehicle.
Well, you were driving the vehicle. And he was driving the vehicle, right?
No, ma'am. He used the vehicle one time.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you that he used it one time, and the one time he used it, he was in an accident. Is that what you're going to tell me?
Yes, ma'am.
Baloney. Miss Thompson.
It was an ice storm.
Miss Thompson, I don't care if it was an ice storm, a tornado, or a typhoon. If you think that I believe that you only let your boyfriend use that car once, I was born in 1965.
Excuse me. I also have a copy of the report here also of the accident. It says nothing about an ice storm.
Whether it says anything about an ice storm, listen to me. She used the car, and it was your agreement that she would pay for the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Once she was using it.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you didn't have a car at the time that was usable.
Yes, I did have a car.
Then why would you use his car?
Your Honor, in the very beginning, I only drove I did not drive his car. He asked me to drive it because the alarm vehicle was on there. He was afraid it was going to drain the battery if it just sat there.
All you have to do is put the car up on blocks and take out the battery. Isn't that right? If you're not going to use it for a long time?
I don't know anything about that.
Well, you
So
should.
initially, I started driving it just on the weekends. After my car went down in '96, then I started driving his car on a daily basis.
So
full-time in '96.
So?
But that was a full year after I had been given possession of the vehicle.
Ma'am, I gave her the car with 37,000 miles on it. I got it back with somewhat of 70,000 miles on it.
Right. Because I basically drive 150 miles a day.
I'm just interested. I'm interested in... These are the expenses from your 401k, is that right?
That's what itemized description of what she gave me.
Who uses all these Bibles?
I was giving them out.
You were giving them out from jail, in jail?
Yes, ma'am.
He spent hundreds of dollars on Bibles to give to other inmates.
I could think of worse things. You were driving this car when it was in a bad accident, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the insurance cover the cost of that?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the cost of repairs for the car?
A little over $5,000.
And how much did the insurance pay?
Everything except for $300, my deductible.
I don't see where she owes you a whole bunch of money, sir. I think she owes you for the gun.
Yeah, well,
I don't think she owes you for the car, and I'm going to get to her countersuit in a minute. Car's a problem. You let somebody have a car, and that's what happens. I think that the 3 car payments that she took out of your 401k, if she was using the car, she has to pay you back for. If she's treating this car as her own, she's driving it, she's letting her boyfriend drive it, it doesn't seem to me that you got to pay for it. That just sounds fair.
Your Honor?
Okay, yes.
The payments that I made with his money was during the time that I was not driving the vehicle on a daily basis, only on the weekends to go visit him. So I don't see where I should be responsible for that full payment.
Why don't you drive your own car to go visit him?
Because his car was newer, he wanted me to drive his car.
That's untrue. Her car
I don't believe, Miss Thompson, that he ever said that to you.
Her car was down.
The problem is when you tell a lie once to a court, the court tends to look at everything else that you say with a certain amount of suspicion.
Amen.
I don't believe that he ever said to you, please drive my car instead of yours, and I also don't believe that you only drove his car on the weekends if you're telling me that his car was newer than yours.
Judge Judy continues.
Lovers that have been together for a while can feel when the other person is drifting off.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. While Lawrence Saunders was in jail, he claims his girlfriend found a new man who damaged his Jeep and lost his gun.
I see two car payments that you made $854 out of his account.
Because it was behind.
Well, he was in jail.
Your Honor, Mr. Saunders had a habit of never paying his bills or not paying them on time.
Yeah, I have no problem with what she's showing with the money, even using my money to pay for my Jeep, okay? I didn't have a problem with that. I asked her, if it would have been up to me, I would have let the vehicle go back and controlled my money until I got back. She said, no, I'll help you, I'll do it for you, you're going to need a vehicle when you get out, there's no problem. And I think she did pretty much a good job with the money.
Oh, so what are you here for? Are you just mad at her?
No, I'm not mad at her.
So
Again, my car was not, she promised me, I asked her to promise me that she wouldn't give my stuff away to a third party. Some guy, I figured that, you know, I'm going for a while, I'm not a fool. She might be dating, she wants to date. I mean, she's a young girl. She shouldn't be strapped down with some guy that's away, okay? Go ahead, do your thing. But if you're going to take care, you gave me your word that you would take care of my stuff. If you're going to take care of my stuff, take care of my stuff. If something happens to it, that's an act of God. But if you're irresponsible and you're handing it out to people, you're handing it out to people that I don't know, you're handing it out to people who aren't above board, it's not honest. That's my opinion, but I can express it.
But you gave her permission to do that.
I gave...
You expected that she might let somebody else drive the car as long as she was responsible.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
I asked her, and she promised me that she would not.
Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And you did. You lent it to somebody else.
I lent it to my family members to move some furniture, and I did loan it to Mr. Hogue.
And you had promised him that you wouldn't.
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, how much did it cost you to fix up the car?
I had a figure of actually around 3,700 that I lost in trading the car in.
So if he says that he lost money because the car was not driven appropriately by you, Mr. Hogue, some members of your family, and was in an accident, don't you think he should be compensated?
No.
Well, but you think that you have a counterclaim against him for what? You're countersuing him for $5,000. I'd like to hear for what?
For the monies that I paid on the Jeep, Mr. Saunders said that I could have used his money, but he didn't have enough money to cover the cost of the vehicle.
So you want him to pay your car that you were using while he was away?
I'm suing him for the fact that he has been, in my opinion, very dishonest about the whole transaction with the vehicle.
Why?
Because, Your Honor, they told me that he was going to pay me back for keeping his vehicle.
Did you ever tell her that?
No.
I believe that you never told her. Ms.
Now,
Thompson,
why would you believe him and not me?
Because you told me already 3 lies today, and we've only been together for 15 minutes.
And he
That's
has
why.
not told you a lie?
That's why. And because it doesn't have the ring of truth. What you're saying doesn't have the ring of truth to it. It
Your
just
Honor.
doesn't. And let me tell you why. Because there were times when he had plenty of money in the bank, and you didn't take the money out of his account to pay for the Jeep. And because according to his statement, which I believe,
62 on the
without
calendar
his
in the matter
prior
of Lake versus
authorization, you went and
McConnell. Part of the
refinanced
morning,
this
Judge.
car
You may be seated.
because the payments were too high, so that you could
Mr.
make
Lake,
the
I am
payments.
baffled
Is
by
that
your
true?
lawsuit,
No,
so I
ma'am.
am hoping
You mean the
sir,
car was
that
never
you are going to be
refinanced?
able
Yes,
to
it was.
explain
I
to
refinanced
me
the
why you
vehicle
believe that
with
this
his
young
credit
lady should
union
give you
because it was a cheaper monthly payment
$2,500.
and less of an
As a
interest
consumer,
rate.
in a
For
very
you to pay. And then you made the payments.
And eventually, he would have had to pay
aggressive
with no
area,
job.
retail grocery.
How was he going to make a
As a consumer there,
$427
where,
payment each month with no
Why don't you
job?
tell me the
Ms.
story,
Thompson,
sir?
so
The
what you're
story
telling me
is-
Tell me
while
about the
you had a new
lawsuit.
boyfriend,
the lawsuit itself
concerned
Put your
about
papers
what
down,
happened to
put your
Mr.
briefcase
Saunders when
down,
he got out of jail.
and just
Judge
relax.
Judy is ready to rule.
62 on the calendar in the matter of Lake versus McConnell. Parties have been
Ms.
sworn
Thompson,
in,
so
Judge.
what
You
you're
may be
telling me
seated.
is while you had a new boyfriend, you were
Mr.
concerned
Lake, I am
about...
hoping,
Yes, I was.
sir, that you are going to be able to explain
The
to me
countersuit is
why you
dismissed.
believe that this young lady
On
should
your
give
lawsuit,
you
sir, this was a very good lesson for you.
$2,500.
Right?
as a consumer
I
in a
wouldn't
very
give my closest relative
aggressive area,
power of
retail
attorney
grocery,
over my
as a
money
consumer there where
without my having the
Why don't
ability
you tell me
to
the story,
co-sign.
sir?
the story
Tell
is
me about the lawsuit.
the
Very
lawsuit
bad
itself
idea.
Put your
concerns
papers
only
down, put your
dealing
briefcase
now
down,
with this gun.
and just relax and tell me the
Because as
story.
far as I'm
the
concerned,
story,
with regard to
which I have the
Jeep, which
physical
is now
evidence
sold,
here, is
She used
that as
it-
a consumer,
She paid
on
for it
Christmas Eve
for a
of
substantial
last year,
period. Whatever monies that
at
you got,
a certain
you
grocery
lost money,
store
but some of the
in
monies
the
that you
San
got
Diego
for
County area.
were monies that she paid. It was almost
With
like
that, and with my
renting a car
companion,
from a
we
rental
went through
company. She had the ability
cash
to use that
only
car
line.
for almost 2
My
years. So
companion
she
went
used
first.
it.
She
It's a
bought
wash.
a couple of items.
You owe for,
She was
you owe
waiting
for the gun.
right there on
The gun should
Christmas
not have been in
Eve
his house
for me to
because
go
you
through.
He left it in a vault someplace.
Body
safe.
language that
Judgment
she
in
was
this
ready
case
to
is
go,
the plaintiff
keys in her
and not
hand,
the
tapping her
$200.
foot.
Thank you. That's all.
It was a very rush type of thing. I come in with one item in the cash line. I go ahead and confront the cashier with.
That's this young lady.
Yes, ma'am.
Be seated, please.
A person now who I now know the first
read
and
your
last name
papers.
of. At that time, she was wearing a name tag with just her
Ms.
first
McBride,
name and
according
last
to your
initial.
complaint, you and the
At that
defendant lived
time,
together for about
right here
4
on
years.
the
Yes.
receipt,
You gave her your item. What did you buy, sir?
I bought
He
one
says he paid
bottle
all
of
the
champagne.
bills. Okay,
Yes.
I bought a
One
bottle of
item.
champagne, but you gave her money. Prior to
Not
your
only did I give
separation, says
50,
you
why
ran
would
a
you say
phone
that?
bill of
Pardon
about
me.
$640.
That's not true.
You gave her two $20 bills and a 50. And how much was the champagne?
You can see the attitude of the store.
Hey,
What
just a
I do,
second.
Your Honor,
Mr.
is
Lake,
every
answer
month,
my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I am
How much
on
was the
a
bottle of
fixed income.
champagne,
The
sir?
bottle,
Okay, so every
I
month
asked
what I
Ms.
do
McConnell,
is
can you break
I
a 50?
call
I
the
told her I
phone
have two
company
20s and a
and
50.
I
She said yes.
ask
I handed
one
her
of
a
the reps,
$50 bill,
what is
a
my- what is the
quarter,
amount
and a
of my
nickel.
phone bill
$50
before I
and 30
even get it,
cents
so I'll
for
know
a
how
$4
much
and
I'm
30
going
cent
to
purchase.
pay
So what
out for
happened?
my phone
Come on,
bill.
speed
What
up the
happened
story.
was,
on
with my
April
companion waiting to go,
17th,
rushing
I
off
got
for
I heard the companion.
And I
What
called
happened
the
with the
phone
money and the
company. Bernard was still in
champagne?
the
Come on.
the
bed.
money in the champagne is I got the
And
champagne,
I
but I didn't get all the money.
asked her
Okay, so you
the
say that she
amount of my
shortchanged
phone
you in
bill.
the
And
change.
she
Is
told
that
me
right?
Went
it
ahead
was
and counted out $50 in cash
$624.13.
Yes,
as
for
a
1
count
month.
back.
For
I
1
grabbed
month.
it and the
Yeah.
receipt,
And so
stuffed it in my pocket,
I was
and
speechless.
left.
I was
Very
I
soon
was
after, in the
speechless,
same
and
part
I
of
was-
town, I had another
I
cash
automatically just
transaction.
started
I
sweating
got out my
because
cash.
I had never had
The
a phone
receipt
bill that
read
big
clearly,
in my life.
cash
You know,
tended,
and so
$40.30.
I couldn't
I went
speak
back
to her.
within half an
kinda
hour
just-
of
So what happened?
So what happened was
making
I
my
said, well,
purchase.
what
I
made the
confronted
bill
her and I said,
$624?
have you taken in
You know,
any
what made the
$50
bill
bills
this high?
recently?
You know, I was
And
actually
she
yelling
said,
at her.
no,
you
this
know.
is within
And so she
minutes
said, well,
after
she said, you
the
have,
transaction.
Okay,
quite
so
a
what
bit
happened?
of,
Come on.
long-distance
What happened
phone
was
calls on
that
your bill to,
talking to various
Virginia,
store officials,
most of them are to
including one
Virginia, and
being
you have a lot of
Honda,
phone calls.
and
Talk
getting
to people at the
sent you a bill.
store.
You
Yes, ma'am.
And did you
Yes, I
get your
did get the
$10
bill.
back?
I got the $10 back after a lot of arguing, and I
So
also
what
got
happened?
the
Got this bill. He's sleeping.
phone up here in LA County.
Yes,
Mr.
I
Lake.
did.
So you went in, you gave her money, you realized
No,
sometime
I'm
later
curious, how
when
did
you
you
were
wake him
making a
up?
purchase
Actually, I
that she
didn't
had
wake
given
him
you,
up.
according to
I
you,
got off the phone
$10
with
less in
the,
change than you should
and
have
I
gotten.
sat
So far
there
as that
because
make
I
it
didn't
fast?
want
Yes.
to go in a
You
rage
went back to the
and
store.
yell at him, like, you know, and
At
start
first
this
they
big thing.
didn't think that they had made a mistake, but
Okay,
ultimately
so
that evening
he
they
was
gave you the
coming out the
$10.
bedroom when
Correct?
I was going
After
to
a lot of
approach
arguing,
him,
yes.
and
So
it
you
was
had a
in the
lot of
hallway.
arguing, whatever.
And so I said, Bernard,
That evening they gave you back the $10.
I said, why did you run
That's
my
correct.
phone bill up to $624?
So why are we here? Did you say it in that
On
tone?
principle.
Yes, I did.
She still has her job.
And so
She
he
has
said,
not, to the best of my knowledge,
"Baby,
been
I didn't know I did
reprimanded, and the store has
And so I
tolerated
said, well, you
outright
did.
theft. This
What
is
was the
not my
phone bill
opinion.
usually on
This
a
is
monthly
physical
basis?
evidence.
Usually on a monthly
It's
basis,
not my
$40,
fault that she
$50
wanted
at the
some
most.
kind of a Christmas bonus
Your
on her
financial
own
arrangement
as
with
an
Mr.
individual
Golden was that you
employee.
paid the rent on the
In
apartment?
a
paid the rent
industry
and the
that from the
utilities.
top
Well, the phone is a
constantly
utility.
cheats consumers through
Well, the phone was not a utility.
price fixing.
No, it was
that
not.
constantly
My name-
take items off
So
of
we paid the
sale on
gas
their
and electric
computers.
Yes.
and the
We
rent.
bought the food.
Employees
Sometimes she
working
did.
on their
Not all the
own
time.